Congressman Cline, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be with you.
I mean, honestly, there's days when you get the perfect guest. You remember the Freedom Caucus, you remember the Budget Committee, you remember the Appropriations Committee, you remember the Judiciary Committee. I feel like we should go Joe Rogan in 4 hours long, but I don't think that your staff would excite. So let's just start with, there's a hearing today. The DOGE subcommittee is meeting. Where does Congress see itself? And by the way, you're a lawyer, so this is great because we can talk about the Constitution. Where does Congress fit in this, right? The Article 2 versus Article 1 in terms of your oversight on federal spending, because just to tee it up a little, I think Democrats are saying, well, Congress has the right to, the power of the purse and the right to spend money and to cancel programs, and the president can't just go ahead and do that. So from your perch, where do you see this?
Well, we do have a responsibility as a co-equal branch of government to make sure the taxpayer dollars are spent appropriately and efficiently and wisely. And so what the president is doing is helping us a great deal by uncovering waste, fraud, and abuse. We've been working in our oversight capacity to try and get this information from these government agencies. But under Democrat control, these agencies wouldn't talk at all with Congress about where the money was going. So for Donald Trump and Elon Musk to be uncovering this waste and sharing it with the world, it makes our job a lot easier, but it makes us more effective as a co-equal branch of government to make sure that taxpayers' money is spent wisely.
So the process works, right? There's a budget, and then the appropriators, which you're on that committee, dole it out to the agencies. So when I see stuff that the president and Elon are exposing, right? $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. Just explain how that happens? In other words, is there some member of Congress that says, I want to fund a transgender comic book? Or is that the agency saying that they're awarding that with the money that you guys sent, and then to your point, not letting you guys see what they did with the money?
Exactly. It's the latter. What's happened is Congress has given away its authority to the executive branch, to all the agencies, to craft not only the rules and regulations dealing with the administration of programs, and Chevron was supporting that, and the Supreme Court just reversed Chevron so that now the agencies have to look to the letter of the law, restoring a lot of congressional authority. But we gave them grant authority. So we give them big tranches of money, and then they get to decide who gets it. So under Democrat administrations, what you get are these ridiculous, liberal, woke programs that get funded by your tax dollars, and they try and hide it and keep it from the eyes of the public, from Congress, and in our oversight capacity. So what we need to do is take back that authority for not only grant writing, but also for the laws that we pass, to make sure that it's the people and the representatives in Congress who are writing the laws, not a bureaucrat in the Department of Education somewhere downtown Washington.
So just walk me through this from a legal standpoint and a member of Congress standpoint. The way that you're explaining this, right? So you're saying, hey, we gave them, under previous administration, they got grant writing authority. So we gave them a pool of money, then they sent it out. They used it clearly for these nefarious reasons, and then they didn't tell us what was going on. The Democrats say, well, Congress gets the power of the purse. But the way that you're explaining this to me, if you guys gave that to them in the first place, then Donald Trump and DOGE are full in their right and responsibility to say, well, Congress told us to write these laws. The Biden administration gave it all away to woke programs. We're stopping that. That at least currently sounds consistently legal, that they can stop it because you guys never said give to a DEI program, don't give to a DEI program. You gave them a pool of money to hopefully advance the cause. We've seen how they abused it. But just from a separation of powers perspective, do you think that DOGE and Donald Trump have the authority right now they need to stop this spending that we're seeing in USAID and other programs?
Absolutely. If you give the Department of Education or USAID or some other department the decision-making ability to spend taxpayer money, spend it on this program, don't spend it on this program, start spending it on this program, stop spending it on this program, then another part of the federal executive branch can come in and say, hey, wait, we're auditing, we're monitoring, we're determining whether this was an appropriate use of taxpayer funds. You've certainly shown us it's not, so you need to stop because under our responsibilities as an executive branch agency, this is what they should be saying, you're abusing the power that was given to you by Congress. So it's entirely legal, constitutional, and responsible, finally, for the executive branch to be saying, let's take a closer look at these grants, and some of them don't need to be spent. So it's going well.
There's a lot of federal workers in Northern Virginia where I live, but your district is a little bit more west and south, and I'd probably rather live in your district than the one I live in now.
Beautiful district.
It is a beautiful district. But do you have a lot of federal workers there?
No, there are some who are working remotely, and those folks have been called back in. So it's shifting, but not very many federal workers are in the Shenandoah Valley because it's about a 90-minute drive. Unless you're during rush hour, it's 2-hour drive.
I was going to say then it's like a 4-hour drive.
Yeah.
So what is the feedback that you're getting right now as a member of Congress? Are people calling you saying, hey, go Donald Trump, go, or are they expressing concern, or is it mixed?
Well, it's very mixed. You have a lot of people who are very supportive of what is happening. This is what they voted for in November. This is what they wanted to see was an auditing, so to speak, of federal wasteful spending. And Donald Trump has gotten down to business and is working hard to make that happen. And Elon Musk is helping. And, you hear from people who are concerned that they want to make sure that all laws are followed regarding the protection of privacy rights, protection of private data. That is being followed by this administration. They are adhering to the letter of the law to make sure that they are protecting the privacy rights of American citizens. Your private information is not being unleashed onto the dark web for financial fraud purposes. It's being protected under current laws. Those laws have been on the books for quite some time. So they are working hard, and the American people are glad to see it happening.
You posted on Twitter for whatever reason. I'm sure that you got a lot of constituent mail about Elon Musk. You wrote a letter back to constituents and then posted it on Twitter, making the case that it's about time. Explain what you did and why you did it.
Well, we correspond with constituents who are concerned about a variety of things. And so for those who were concerned about Musk, not only did I want to reassure them that he was hired legally, that he is, in fact, being hired as a government employee, and that DOGE is, in fact, a legal division of the federal government. It is a renamed department that was established under Obamacare, under Obama's administration, to deal with the website affecting Obamacare. But he has taken that, renamed it the DOGE department, and actually put it to work. And so what I wanted to do was to not only explain to the folks who were corresponding from my district about these issues, but actually defend the work that is going on in the executive branch. Trump has really been confronted by the bureaucratic state. They are rising up against him. And in all of these congressional committees, the defenders of the bureaucracy, Maxine Waters, Jamie Raskin, Hakeem Jeffries, they are all out there really, really upset that that their bureaucratic colleagues, allies in the federal government are being told to either get back to work in person or stop sitting on your couch in your pajamas, or actually that they aren't going to be coming to work anymore, because quite frankly, we shouldn't be hiring one more federal employee than is absolutely necessary to run this federal government efficiently and effectively. We owe it to the taxpayers to save every dollar we can. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. And that's what I put in that letter. That's what I'm about as their representative. And I'm excited to work hand in glove with this administration to defend American taxpayers and get the job done.
What's the mood like among your colleagues? Because I have been saying for a while, like, we've had the Grace Commission during the Reagan years. We had Simpson Bowles. We've had other congressional initiatives to cut spending and waste. What I've seen in the last 7 to 10 days disgusts me. And I think you get that as somebody who's been like a champion of fiscal responsibility. Like I assume you feel the same way, but just the idea that we didn't even know this. It's one thing to oppose certain policies of the other party, but the idea that the level of disrespect that people had with our tax dollars to fund some of this stuff, just to me is what's worth so much of this now, because exposing how we send federal records down to a mine shaft, through a mine shaft to a limestone mine, the programs that I just enumerated and so many more, the workers that are still getting paid that are dead. It's like the idea that if it wasn't for them, it would just keep going on.
Yeah, it's confirming everything we knew to be true about the federal bureaucracy, but we just didn't have the receipts. And what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing is giving us the receipts to go back to the American people and say, it's as you thought, and it's confirming our worst fears, is that your tax dollars are being abused. We need to return power to the states, to the localities, to the people, provide tax relief, extend the Trump tax cuts so people can keep more of what they earn, but also work to bring down prices and stop wasting tax dollars and spending, contributing to the inflation that's been hurting American families for so many years, and stop the wasteful spending. And we're getting to work. And I think all of the work that's being done in the executive branch is actually helping us to convince our reticent colleagues, because there are a lot of people with a Republican by their name, but especially in the Senate, they're not anxious to go cut the wasteful spending because it interferes with some of the friends they've made in Washington. They need to stop worrying about their dinner parties and get to the work of the American people.
Yeah, what I love about this is for so long, it's been speech after speech, tweet after tweet. We need to do something about the problem. And then to your point, it's, well, I got to go to the dinner party and with all my buddies at PBS or NPR, and I don't want them to not like me. So I'm going to support that because that's important to some liberal buddies that I go to dinner parties with, or I want to get invited to their party. And I'm glad to see us finally saying this. I hope that we not only expose the waste, but some of these Republicans that talk the talk and don't walk the walk. But you mentioned your Democratic colleagues, Jamie Raskin, one, Maxine Waters. I got to be honest with you. I'm kind of like, I feel bad for their response. Like they stand outside of buildings, flail their arms. Chuck Schumer's running around with a Corona beer. Like, I'm like, wow, is this the best you got? Like, it's actually, honestly, I think it's sad. It's like, I thought that they might have a better response, and it's just pathetic.
It is surprising to see in a hearing like we have right now in Judiciary Committee, when we're going over the victories for free speech over the last few months of the first few months of the Trump administration, how far we've come in the last 4 years, when Twitter, Facebook, Meta, everybody was under attack from the Biden administration for putting out information about COVID. RFK Jr., who was a witness at one of our hearings in Judiciary Committee, is now about to be Secretary of Health and Human Services. Yeah. And we had Jamie Raskin actually agreeing with the idea of free speech and how supportive of free speech he is, and how we're so glad to move beyond this terrible time. Well, he was working with the administration to contribute to this censorship regime that was underway in the Biden administration. But it's funny just to watch how they flipped, and now they're applauding us as we're actually defending free speech and working for the taxpayers.
Yeah, so you got this judiciary hearing on big tech. All these guys in big tech, exactly as you described, suddenly are, I didn't mean to do this, but we suppressed your free speech, but we're on your team now. I got to be honest with you. I don't believe any of them. I think that they just know that Congress and Donald Trump was probably going to regulate them more, or get rid of Section 230, or a variety of things. And their answer was, we'll just pretend that we're your friends now. We'll throw some money at Trump's inauguration. You guys are continuing to expose this in the Judiciary Committee. Do you believe these big tech companies when they say that they suddenly are our buddies and support free speech? Or do you think that they're just using us and they'll go back to their left-wing woke ways as soon as they can?
Well, it's all about the money for them. Those who are in private businesses, these tech titans are just, they're about making a profit. And when they see the winds blowing in favor of free speech, in favor of the rights of American citizens, their constitutional rights, then they want to be on board with that, because they know it's going to end up boosting their profits. So they'll work with this administration because it's going to help them in the end. But we want to lock them in to these policies, to these comments, defending free speech, making sure that they are protecting the rights of Americans to express their views, and are not going to agree with a future Democrat administration that wants to censor the American people, that wants to force.
Oh, and they do.
businesses.
They do. I mean, that's the thing. They left to their ways. And I see what I loved about what you just said, Congressman, is we know we have 2 years, and there's so much you can do through executive order, executive action, et cetera. But if you guys don't codify it in law, whether it's immigration or some of the free speech that you just said, the tax cuts, energy, border, then we have a problem, because they'll just undo it if they get back in. And so I think that, like, I love the fact that you're talking about codifying it in law to make sure that they can't undo it.
Absolutely. And whether it's, USAID, CFPB, all of these agencies, the Department of Education, which I hope Donald Trump wants to repeal and end, but he's going to do as much as he can through executive orders, return power to the states and to the people to decide for them how to educate their children. But we need to lock those into law, and it's going to take some stiffened spines, especially in the Senate, where you have some weak-kneed Republicans who aren't going to want to go through the revolutionary changes that the people demanded last November.
You are on the Freedom Caucus, as I mentioned. You're a appropriator. The big talk, at least in Washington, is 2 bills or 1. Where do you guys, is there a Freedom Caucus consensus on this matter?
So the Freedom Caucus supports a 2-bill strategy, the idea being we need to move as quickly as possible to implement the Trump agenda. So the first bill would be focused on the border, focused on restoring energy independence, and then we could move on to extending the Trump tax cuts and some more cuts. My concern is that those cuts will never come. And so I'm open to the idea of a single bill. In fact, the Budget Committee has noticed a markup for tomorrow to actually mark up a single budget bill to lock in those tax cuts, to lock in those spending cuts, to move us further down the path and implement the Trump agenda as quickly as possible. Spend $300 billion toward the border, towards energy independence, toward securing our national defense. And so the House is going to move quickly with a single bill tomorrow. The Senate is moving on a 2-bill strategy. We all want the same thing. We're going to work together to get there, whether it's 1 bill or 2.
I get it, and I'm with you. Like, I just want the end result. I really don't care if you have 50 bills versus 1 or 2. But I guess the question is, at some point, this comes to a head. Lindsey Graham, the Senate Budget Committee chairman, as you said, is moving ahead with his 2-bill strategy. He's marking up his. And so where does this, because it seems Speaker Johnson wants 1, but at some point this comes to a head, and I guess that there's a numbers issue in the House, right? Which is, if enough of the House members don't support a single bill strategy, then it doesn't pass. And so I guess my question is, how does this play out? Like, because we're all in agreement. We just want the end result, but it's like saying, I just want to get to, Colorado. There's various routes to get there. And you might think, I want to take more interstate. I might want to take a more scenic route. And you'd say, well, it doesn't really matter, but it kind of does.
It does. And more importantly than a 1 bill versus 2 bill strategy is the idea of current policy versus current law. And what the Senate has done with their bill is simply said, we're going to extend current policy. It doesn't cost taxpayers a dime to extend the tax cuts another 10 years. And we're not going to include a lot of cuts to, quote, pay for these tax cuts. Whereas what the Congressional Budget Office is saying and what the House is going to budget to is the idea of current policy, which says tax cuts are ending. If you want to extend them another 10 years, you have to pay for them by cutting spending. And so we're going to demand tax cuts, but spending cuts to help offset those tax cuts. And that's going to help shrink the size of the federal government. This is a more conservative budget. It's a more conservative budget than the Senate.
Just so I didn't mean to interrupt you, Congressman, but I didn't realize. So is the 1 bill actually cuts more of government? Is that what you're?
Yes, the House bill will cut more.
Then you made me just switch my position. I'm now a 1 bill guy.
Well,
because I want, I mean, like to me, the problem with some conservatives is they say, oh, we'll just grow our way out of the deficit. Maybe that's true, maybe not. I don't know. But here's the problem is that it leaves, as Kamala Harris would call it, the root causes. We still have a big, bloated, inefficient government. And if we don't actually focus on the cuts, we don't get the benefit of that regardless. So I don't, the deficit to me, whether we grow out of it or not, is sort of tangential to the fact that if we don't address spending, it's going to come back to bite us in the future.
And now that we have just grown this deficit to nearly $2 trillion a year, we can't grow our way out of it. We have to actually cut spending.
Yes.
And the trillions in spending from the Biden administration have made it that much worse. And now the interest on the debt has overtaken our Defense Department as the largest area of spending in the federal government outside of entitlement programs. But we have got to control spending, and the House budget will take those steps, whereas the Senate budget kicks the can.
You've got a business background aside from you worked in sales and marketing for a rural internet company. And I'm thinking to myself as I think through this, like Biden was spending a ton of money to send broadband to rural areas. You've got a ton of experience in this. It didn't connect with a single person, billions of dollars, whereas something like a Starlink could. I mean, how are like policies like that in your business experience playing into the development of budget and ideas like this?
Well, you need to go where the public wants to go. The public wants rural internet, but the costs are prohibitive of providing that last mile of fiber to the home when you're out in the middle of nowhere, and it takes hundreds of miles to get to you. Whereas a Starlink, the marketplace is going to provide. And so you're going to have innovators like Elon Musk providing those solutions. And that's why we need to give more power to the marketplace, less power to the government to decide winners and losers. And that's where this deregulatory environment that the Trump administration is encouraging is going to deliver for Americans, not just in terms of putting more money in their pockets, but also putting more products on the table and in the stores for them to choose from.
So as we move forward, just to put a pin in this whole discussion on the budget, like, do you guys, and I know it's never known until it goes to the floor, but when you guys meet right now, are you 95% there? Are you 98? Or are you in the 80s as far as getting people on board on the one bill strategy?
Well, conservatives are individualists, and so we each have our own individual idea of what it should be, whereas the collective of the left marches together like the Borg. So you're going to have a hard time herding cats and actually getting everybody to vote together to pass this budget resolution. But I'm optimistic we're going to get there. We can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We have to move in a direction that cuts spending and returns more power to the people. And that's why I'm hopeful we'll pass it out of committee tomorrow and then on the floor when we come back.
Most of the time, last thing I want to just ask you, though, is most politicians, whether you're at the local level, I mean, city council or all the way up to Congress, right? You come home around election time and say, this is what I got you. I helped with this bridge. We got a new post office. I voted to, cut your taxes, whatever. From a political standpoint, how attractive do you think reducing the size of government and cutting spending is?
Oh, it's very salient. It really does matter to people that they recognize government is too big. They recognize government costs too much and it actually is very inefficient. They recognize the benefits of the private sector and what it can deliver for them. So the idea of successfully reducing the size and scope of the federal government, first of all, it hasn't been done successfully. And so what Trump and Musk are doing with partners in Congress is actually really unheard of in Washington and in our communities back home. So they're applauding it, they're celebrating it, and hopefully, at the end of the day, it is going to be change-inducing for America and restoring what Trump says will be the golden age of America, and we're optimistic that we'll get there.
Well, I hope that's the case. I appreciate, like I said, perfect guest today. I mean, between the Freedom Caucus, you have a legal background, you're on the Appropriations Committee, the Budget Committee, the Judiciary Committee. So we lucked out with you. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate you joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sean. Great to be with you.
You bet. All right, thanks for tuning in today. What a great show. Tomorrow, we've got an amazing panel to break down everything that's going on in Washington. We'll talk about Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, getting over the line, plus Victor David Hanson on Friday. So sign up for my newsletter, SeanSpicer.com. It's free. You get a lot of insight. You're always welcome to be a VIP member. We will see you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.